For the resilience of reset for Wednesday. And you know what that means. We don't know what topic's going to happen. We're going to find out together. I'm going to pull it from one of my books. And, let me check my microphone. It was upside down. Anyway, let me know if you're here. I'd love to hear from you, and let's get right to it. Remember, again, this is Resilience Reset. It is 20 to sometimes 40 minutes of me riffing on a topic and chatting with you in the chat box. If you put your comment in, I will bring it up on the screen, so just be forewarned. And of course, I follow the conversation afterwards too. So if you happen to be catching this on the replay, for sure you can add to the commentary, and I'll be right there with you. So we choose from one of my books, and we'll pull a topic. Which book are we going to use today? Greg is on YouTube. I know you choose different ones. YouTube, because we stream to Facebook, my Facebook page, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And I know Greg goes back and forth, and I think some other people do too. Bonjour. We're going to get the languages going here too. Bonjour, comment ça va? Ça va bien, et toi? That's all I remember from. Actually, I remember a lot more than that. My mom speaks French. She's very fluent. Okay, which book should we choose? Maybe we'll go with this one. Although this one is going to be re-released. I'm going to edit it. And I keep saying that. There are just a few concepts in here that I want to change. And I'm going to change the title so that people don't get so hung up on the joke for the title and just make it How to Be Resilient When Life Sucks. But it is a chock full of information. But let's go through this book. Go. Right there. Now, as long as we haven't done the topic before, we got to look. The toughest stuff. Oh boy, let's hit a heavy one. Actually, you know what? This is really good. This is a good one for what people are going through right now. The concept of this chapter, let me just remember, is really about when we're dealing with true life adversities. So cancer diagnosis, I start off here with Dad being diagnosed with cancer. And just different things about, okay, so I'll just quickly review. All right. So let's talk about it. Toughest stuff. And I don't know who's going, somebody will need to hear about this today, because there's something going on perhaps in your life that is very, very heavy. And so often in our society, we tend to glorify tasks, and I'm busy, busy, busy. And the toughest stuff, the experiences as a part of our human experience that truly deserve our emotional attention, that can shake us to our core and shift how we perceive our lives to be, are the very things that we tend to diminish and ignore. Which chapter? Oh, okay, wait, I'll find it again. I went here, and it's coming up as LinkedIn user, so I don't know who's actually talking. So if you want to tell me your name, I can. Sometimes the settings, depending on your privacy settings, here it is, chapter 16. Okay, the toughest stuff. And you know, the thing is that there's an anxiety that can happen. So I'm going to go through a couple different ideas. And again, this is a riff off the top of my head, and we just bring these to the forefront. But like when Dad had cancer, so he had, I think he was 18 months, maybe 16 months. He had 4 brain tumors, and they were diagnosed. So things were kind of going wrong. Like you could tell that there was a problem with Dad. We didn't know what it was. And then he had a seizure, went into the hospital, and we found out he had 4 brain tumors. And, you know, thank goodness our medical system here in Canada, we're so fortunate because he got great care and still was able to live another fairly full life, actually, for quite some time. And my mom cared for him. But if you know anything, and if you saw the post, a lot of people have really loved that post I wrote about my dad earlier this week. And he was a huge part of my life. And so when he got sick, I think what we tend to underestimate, or maybe we just don't talk about it, is that when our heart is breaking about something, it actually overshadows everything else. And if we're not aware of what's happening, if we're not self-aware of the true emotions that we're feeling and being okay with them, and like I hated feeling awful emotions, just like every one of us, right? And so I would ignore them and push them down and try to stay busy, 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 because busy was okay, heartbroken was not. And if I didn't, like, called it my gotta go technique, right? If I don't like how it is over here, I would go over here and just try to ignore and push this down and not process it. And I don't know if you've ever had that experience in your life where it's just something feels unbearable to deal with. And the problem with that coping mechanism, which many of us use, is that our body still needs to process it. Our heart still needs to process it. Our mind still needs to process it. So even though we're ignoring it, what ends up happening is somehow your body will figure out a way to deal with it. And so I was stuffing down the anxiety, the hurt, the anger, all the grief emotions, all the worst stuff. And ultimately my body ended up revolting, right? Like I burned out, I had the surgery, things went wrong. I had neuropathic pain for years and a lot of other health challenges. And like in many ways, I think it's because I didn't have the coping mechanisms of dealing with the true grief. Craig, I wondered because you were saying packing. Yeah, just saw the notice you're going live and clicked the link. Perfect. Glad you're here. And you've got put them in an imaginary box and put them up on the shelf and ignore it. Well, and this is the thing, right? This is what we do because nobody wants to feel uncomfortable, right? So then when we're crying or when we're upset or we're devastated in front of somebody else, they're like, oh, don't cry. Or they try to diminish it for us or try to make it, oh, it's going to be okay. And oh, don't cry. And the thing is, we need to cry. We need to give space to the toughest stuff because it's the emotions need to have somewhere to go. They need to be felt. And anytime we push them down, we actually ultimately, they're going to eventually boil up. And it might boil up with misplaced emotion or negative storyline or, just breaking down and not doing a good job in our work and burning out. Right. And so a lot of my philosophy, like my core principles that I teach in my keynotes and my workshops and my online programming is that we have to reverse this. So our tasks that get glorified need to lose some of their esteem in our lives. And they just are stuff that needs to get done. And we just get really efficient and really organized and really good at doing them without any extra emotion, no fanfare, no drama, just like get them done. Because it's when the tasks take up our capacity unnecessarily, then what it's doing is it's stealing from the space and the capacity we need in order to process effectively the real toughest stuff, the adversities of our life. And, there are people who, I think in some ways sort of mix it up and think that their tasks are obstacles and adversities, right? I don't like make the big thing. And that's not the right way to do it either. But I think, like, if we look at the chapter here, it was like I was an hour away because I was in the city and mom and dad were at the house where I now live. And, there was this constant worrying about dad dying and it just underlaid everything else, right? It was like living on this always on edge existence. And if you've ever gone through cancer or other health treatments or you're waiting on, some important information, and actually, I feel like the toughest stuff was like also if you were here for the journey in May when my mom went in for heart surgery and she was 27 days in the hospital. There were a bunch of complications and we couldn't go in because of COVID. So I didn't get to see her at all, except for one time outside before her surgery. And what I think was so important about the systems that I teach is that I proved that it worked because I had the tasks that needed to get done. Everything still got done. I think I dropped the ball on one. I forgot about one story that I was supposed to submit. It happens. But because the tasks we're so efficient and we're so effective and organized in getting our tasks done, then we have the clearness and the objectivity to look at any obstacles that come up. And we just, like, again, without that fanfare, without the, creating extra drama around it, we can get those done. Then there was space left over to be like, I'm really scared about mom. I'm, feeling all these feels, all these emotions that need to be felt and processed. And I feel like I did a really good job through that time, because I was able to say, okay, I'm really hurt. I'm really scared. I'm really, a few tears, all those things, beautiful. And yet I could show up and do the task and have the objectivity for the regular obstacles without mixing the two. Now, contradict that to the good old days before I had done all of this work and written my books and created all my concepts, when mom was in the hospital, or when dad was in the hospital with all of this cancer and whatnot. I was a ticking time bomb. I was on edge with people I didn't know. I had a very short fuse, very, innocent bystanders, right? Who may have, just, given me the wrong change, and I'd be like, and that is the risk. And that, I think, is a lot of things that are happening. And, even now, I look at what's happening in our country and the election and the COVID. And I mean, like everybody, I have very strong feelings about it. Right. And yet I've got to process those as part of the toughest stuff, give space to that, and actually be curious about my thinking, about the thinking, and, why am I reacting like that? And what do I really think? And what does that person think? And, oh, maybe they have a valid point. And, really trying to be thoughtful about it without having it overshadow all of the other good stuff in our lives. Because I think that's the biggest risk with the toughest stuff, is that if we're not having the emotional discipline and the mental discipline to see it for what it is, and to accept that it's like our whole being is going to have to process this difficult thing that we're facing, then what happens is it just becomes one great big overshadowing umbrella, and then nothing good can come through, right? Like, it's just like it is the lens through which you see everything in your life, even though the many things in your life, if this is going wrong and this is the tough stuff, and this is going right, if you don't have the emotional discipline, if you're not doing this work, then the cloudy thing is going to overshadow the good thing. That's the risk. And then everything's crap. And then everything's harder to deal with. And then it's just this big vicious cycle. Emotions have a purpose. They absolutely do. You know what? Like, they're indicators. They are part of the process. And, one of the things that helped me really, truly embrace the worst emotions and be okay with sitting with them is I recognized that in order to feel joy, we need to feel despair. We wouldn't know what happiness is if we didn't understand what sadness is. If we only had neutral, none of we can't have the good stuff without having the negative, because the good stuff doesn't have it doesn't have relativity without the opposite. And so, being okay with that is really just freeing. And I think with the grief, it's having that sensation of like going into the pit of your stomach where you want to throw up, and where your heart literally feels like it's breaking, and owning that and just like sitting with it instead of ignoring it and trying to push it down, is actually gives it freedom and movement to release, to be felt, to be seen, to be heard. That needs to happen so that our body can go, okay, yeah, I got that, and I'm gonna process it, and I'm gonna release it. And when other people are going through the toughest stuff, how can we better support them? And here I see a quick story of how. So he died, by the way, 2 weeks before my 30th birthday. And mom was devastated and exhausted. So mom was a caregiver. They'd been married for 33 years. They were a very intertwined couple, and just a beautiful lot of years and everything. But I am embarrassed because I felt like she wasn't getting over it fast enough. So this is, when it comes to the toughest stuff, when other people are going through their journey, how can we be supportive? And I'll tell you, I wasn't supportive. I was like, Mom, come on, get back on your, get back up. Like, just like everybody says, you can bounce back. And you can't bounce back. He's not coming back. But I gave Mom a book, and this is why I'm embarrassed. And it was called, is it here? It was called Get Over It. Awful. Because here's the thing. First of all, it's awful to see somebody who we love hurting. And so the easiest thing to do is try to get them to stop acting like they're hurting so that we can protect ourselves from hurting. Okay. So I just want you to think about that for a second. Any interaction you've had with somebody else where you have tried to get them to stop feeling something negative. It's less about them and it's more about us. As awful as that may sound. But the thing is that the better way would have been, how can I support you? And I understand you're feeling all these feelings. And because you're feeling those feelings, I can just be here for you to allow you to feel them for as long as it takes. And instead of telling you to get over it or to stop crying or to take action, the better answer would have been to just allow without judgment. And say, what do you need from me? And feel the feels that I'm feeling. So if I'm deflecting, I don't want you to feel that difficult thing. So then I don't feel that difficult thing. Then that's about me. And I got to get comfortable feeling the difficult thing so that I can better support you feeling the difficult thing. Do you see what I'm saying? And if we could get better at this as a society, I think we'd have a much more empathetic life and a better world as a whole. So I think there were some coaching questions in the back of this book. So I had the Resiliency Ninja framework, the formula, self-awareness, so I had it a little bit different, the resourcefulness, and then the strengths. So your self-awareness related to your heart, your mental, and your physical strength, and then your resourcefulness. So let's just look at a couple of these quick questions. There is a time to power through, and there is a time to honor your need to collapse in the fetal position and do so without judgment. And when we're feeling the toughest stuff, this whole concept of push through, when you're going through hell, keep on going, rah, rah, I'm an A-type personality, I'm going to get it done, power, power, power. The thing is that does not help your healing. It doesn't give you the space. It gives you a tool to deflect. So there are certain times so let's say you're devastated about this thing that's happening, but you've got a really big sales presentation that's going on. Well, that's the time you need to power through, right? Do your work, get ready for the meeting. Hopefully you have it all, like you've got your systems in place so you know what you're doing, and you can do that with your eyes closed, so to speak. But you go in, you show up totally present. You're like recognizing before you walk into the room, I've got this heavy burden on my heart. I know it's going to potentially impact my feeling and my sensation, but I'm going to focus on the task at hand, the thing that matters the most in this moment. And then at the end, I'm going to give myself permission to go and totally feel the feels about the big, tough thing that I need to deal with. That totally, like, it's mental discipline, it's emotional discipline, it is your ability to rise above when things are going wrong. It's a great tool. The problem is that if we use that tool only and in isolation of anything else that is helpful to give ourselves the space to actually grieve and deal with the difficult things, then ultimately what happens is your body will force you in the free time at some point to deal with it. So whether it's an injury, a diagnosis of your own, a burnout, exhaustion, like you name it, it will ultimately do that. So I think part of the awareness when you're going through the toughest stuff is getting really self-aware on what do I need for my body, for my mind and my heart in order to process this, and how am I trying to avoid it in any way to go through with it. So that's something to do. Another thing that I've written here is there's no specific time to heal from grief or severe traumas. The more you honor your healing, the faster you will move forward to a newer version of yourself. And this is part of it, is we can't rush it, but we can allow it to process more quickly by giving it space to process, by not deflecting, by not running away from those awful emotions, sitting with it. I mean, with the surgeries and things that I went through, and a lot of this book is based on that time when I had so much pain and was physically devastated and still, had to grieve the way my life used to be and what I thought my life would be, and all of that. It was, I would think about it for a little bit, and then I'd be like, oh, I can't handle it. And I'd got to go somewhere else, and I'd go do something and get lost in a TV show or something that would just lose my mind and thought of anything important. And what I found is when I actually sat with it, when I actually went into the reality of the situation, into the doldrums of it and just felt the worst and the worst case scenario, and not from a pessimistic perspective, but from this really sucks. Like, I'm going to embrace the suckage and just get really good with it. What it did is it sort of unlocked this stuckness, and that allows the emotions to feel like, so then we can actually process them and move on and allow them to go off. And then I write here, wishing for the way things were will not serve your healing. It's about creating a new way of life that is acceptable. And, that's where I talk about the fact that we can't bounce back. And so often when things go wrong, we can be so focused on romanticizing the past and wishing for what it was. And what that does is it steals our opportunity to love this moment and see a bigger vision for the future. And so with that toughest stuff, which is like a really, fun chapter to choose today, I know there are a lot of people who are going through a lot of really, really, really difficult things right now. We are collectively, we are individually, and to gloss over it and suggest that those things don't suck is unfortunate. Okay, don't just do something, stand there. This is exactly what you're talking about in letting something sit with you. A family member shared the following line with me. It had a profound effect. Okay, let me see. Okay, you're going to tell me what the line that you just wrote, the one at the beginning. Don't just do just. Hold on, I gotta read it. Let me read it. I got it backwards. I was waiting for the line to come, and then I realized the line was the top one. Don't just do something, stand there. Yes. Being okay with sitting or standing in the hardest stuff. And our instinct, I find anyway, and maybe you can tell me if you feel the same way, is our instinct is to get really busy. And this is where we've got to sit with the hardest things, have the tough conversations, feel the feels, as they say, feel the feels. There's Winston coming up. Hi. He likes the other couch better, so he's not in the shots as often as he used to be. But anyway, I think that's good for today with this resilience reset. So if you're going through the toughest stuff, I'm going to encourage you. And, you know what I used to do? I used to actually book time in my day where it'd be like, okay, I got to get this done. I'm feeling all this emotion here. Okay, for 45 minutes, I'm going to do a power work session. I'm going to totally be focused. I'm going to get this done. And then at the end of 45 minutes, I'm going to have 5 minutes of just soaking in the suckage so I can process it, give the emotions a chance to really feel and process. And then I'm going to do another 45 minutes. And that for me allowed me the emotional discipline and the mental discipline to put the toughest stuff in the emotional box, give it the space it needed while still getting the work done. Because at the end of the day, the business doesn't stop, the job performance still has to be there. And, no matter what life circumstances we're facing. So on that note, I am going to wrap up today's Resilience Reset. Tomorrow, we're going to do a book. What's it called? Oh, Linchpin by Seth Godin. I don't know. I might have a little bit to offer on it. I think it might be a short reset, but who knows? Show up, have fun. We'll see what comes out of my mouth tomorrow. And don't forget to share this, invite people. If you want to be on my weekly lift up email, let me know. And you can get on that at my website at alisongraham.co. And of course, like always, if you are planning or know somebody who is planning a conference or a professional development event for their team, check out my profile and be sure to consider me as your speaker. So until tomorrow, may you stress less, do more, and be happier. Thanks for being here. Bye for now.